You're watching NewsX. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. As we said, we're going to speak about Chandrayaan 2, whose lander, named after Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, has performed its last deorbit maneuver today at 3:42, which has further lowered the lander to an orbit of 36 into 110 kilometers, basically bringing the lander almost 30 kilometers close to the moon. This was performed between 3:30 and 4:30 this morning. Maneuver will allow the lander to go around the moon in a slightly shorter orbit distance. The first deorbiting was performed yesterday. It was a 4-second operation that was performed by ISRO's Bangalore Control Center. All in, of course, a preparation for the final soft landing on the 7th of September. The lander will take 15 minutes to land, and this, of course, would be the most crucial part of the entire mission that aims to ensure that India becomes the first country to land on the south polar region of the moon, putting us way ahead of the world's space superpowers. Joining me on the show, P.K. Ghosh, former ISRO space strategist, Professor B.G. Siddhartha, director of Birla Planetarium. We have Mr. R.C. Kapoor, who's a scientist, and we have Mr. Rashi Verma, in fact, who's a student of DPS, also with us on the broadcast. Let's quickly put out all our panelists who are with us on the broadcast. Mr. P.K. Ghosh, Professor Siddhartha, R.C. Kapoor, as well as Rashi, who's a student from DPS. Let's quickly first get in P.K. Ghosh. Sir, your first reaction to the separation from orbiter?
It's a very important step in our entire journey to the moon, and a very significant step. And it's, as we keep clearing one step after the other, going from the orbit, Earth's orbit, to the moon, and then separation, this is a very important step. And of course, the most crucial step is the landing. But this is also equally important.
And so how do you compare to the landing process of Chandrayaan 1, of course, with Chandrayaan 2?
Both are quite different. One is the logical progression from 1 to 2. In Chandrayaan 1, what we were essentially trying to do is, we were trying to re-establish, reiterate the technologies that we had. The technology of going to the moon, from orbital movement around the Earth to the orbit of the moon, then, of course, landing on the moon. Chandrayaan 1 had a lunar impact module which actually impacted on the moon's surface at Jawahar Point, near Shackleton crater. So we didn't do it in the soft landing, but that was the precursor to the soft landing that we are going to do now. At that time, we found out we had a lot of sensors and instruments from other countries also, like NASA, European Space Agency, like Bulgarian Space Agency, which we gave them free. We had our own 6 sensors. Now, the thing is that our aims were different. They were a little more limited. But remember, we found out that there is water on the moon, water molecules. I think it's a misconception. People are thinking probably there'll be a lot of ponds and rivers. There's nothing of that sort. So that was what we found. Now, Chandrayaan 2 is a totally different ball game. It's a much more advanced thing. We are going to do a soft landing. We are going to have a rover, Pragyan, which is going to go out. It is going to do experiments, while there is an orbiter which keeps on going. Now, in Chandrayaan 1, the orbiter lasted 1 year, though it finished all its 95% of its objectives, but it lasted 1 year. So we have learned from there. Now this will go on for 2 years and probably more.
Okay, so, explain to us, sir, in simple terms, what exactly would Vikram, the lander, do till the 7th of September?
The Vikram will take an orbit which is about 30 into 100 kilometers orbit, and steadily do fine and rough braking and move closer and closer towards the moon. Now, at various stages, for example, at 100 kilometers, at 100 kilometers, probably it'll have a speed of 6,132 kilometers per hour. It'll slow down to 500 and some kilometers, 512 kilometers, I think, per hour, and come nearer. Finally, I'm not going to go into details of exactly, because that's going to be boring, but it's going to come down to about 400 meters. And at 100 meters, again, at 400 meters, at 100 meters, it'll stop and see whether the landing space is okay. At 10 meters, again, it'll stop for a few seconds and then again see. Because it's very important that the landing space is okay. There should be no boulders. It can't land on a boulder. It should be free of boulders, and the inclination should not be more than 12 degrees. I think it's designed for 15 degrees, but we are going by the fact that the inclination should not be more than 12 degrees. 4 hours after the landing, soft landing, Pragyan will roll out. So firstly, that's what I think even the chairman of ISRO, Dr. Sivan, has said, that look, those 15 minutes of terror which are going to be there when we are actually going to have the soft landing. After that, 4 hours after that, Pragyan will come out.
Okay, then, also explain to us, sir, why do we choose the cold trap area of South Pole?
You see, the moon the surface has got no atmosphere. So the temperatures are extremes. Wherever there is sunlight, it goes up to 160, 170 degrees. While there are some craters where the sun never affects that crater. So it is extremely cold. It's again minus 170, 130 degrees. These are the places where the chances of water being there is much more. That is why firstly, there hasn't been much landing. There haven't been landings in the South Pole. And we are landing in the South Pole basically for this, to see the chances are that we might find water in these cold traps, because the chance of finding water when the thing is hot is obviously not there. So this is one of the reasons. This is one of the reasons.
And so what are the challenges that lie ahead?
Actually, it's all a continuous challenge. But the entire focus of ours is going to be now on Vikram rather than on the orbiter.
Yes.
So, as I said, the Vikram is going to come down slowly. So, in these days, we are going to see all the focus being shifted on to Vikram.
And, sir, again, explain to us, the significance of this project is, one, explain to us in simple terms what this would mean in terms of benefits.
Oh, it is a lot more beneficial now. We are actually going to tell the world. The Israelis couldn't land over there, bare sheet. So we are going to be the 4th country which are going to do a soft landing. Most of the technology is indigenous. And mind you, that's not easy. Whatever people might say, it is not an easy thing to build up this technology, the cryogenic engine technology, which was, the Russians finally didn't give it to us. The lander, which they were supposed to build, we built it ourselves. So I think we have come of age, and every Indian should be proud of the fact that we have not only come of age, we are able to show the world that in space we have got robust technology, and it is very, very economical. The Apollos spent $25 billion in their time, and now it is about $110 billion. We have spent 1,000 crores, not even 1,000, 978 crores.
Yes.
I mean, it's peanuts compared to that. So
absolutely,
we are giving you robust, reliable technology, which is most economical. I think we have got something to be proud of.
All right. Thanks much, sir, for speaking to us. And in fact, let's play out this report that tells our viewers how India will accomplish the task of landing on lunar surface.
Vikram, the lander, will land on the moon anytime between the 6th and the 7th of September 2019. If all goes well, which it should. Up until this point, ISRO has used the same strategy as the Chandrayaan 1. What's new, in fact, is this landing. We will for the first time attempt what is called a soft landing on the lunar surface, and if successful, India will join the elite space club with US, China and the erstwhile Soviet Union as the fourth nation in the world to have achieved this feat, and that too in the first attempt. This is what the lander Vikram looks like. All hopes of Chandrayaan 2 rely on this 1000 kg device. Once it lands successfully, it will put India in the international headlines once again. ISRO is sure of the landing. This is how we'll do it. Once the orbiter is in the moon's orbit, it will take 27 days to revolve around the moon and deorbit the lander. This will happen at a distance of 100 kilometers, and it will take the lander, once separated, 4 days to reduce the distance to 30 kilometers. Meanwhile, the orbiter will be scanning the surface of the moon for a landing site. Once the site is locked, the information will be relayed to the lander. On the 6th or the 7th of September, 53 days after being launched, the lander will have 15 minutes to make a soft landing. It will travel at a speed of 2 kilometers per minute so that the landing can be smooth.
It takes the 15 minutes from the starting of the braking of the velocity to landing. This 15 minutes is going to be the most terrifying moment for all the people who belong to ISRO, probably for the scientists and people of India also. Yeah, this 15 minutes is going to be the most difficult task that ever ISRO has undertaken the mission to land it on that.
The lander is landing on the moon's south pole, an uncharted territory. This location has been chosen as it is permanently shadowed. We're hoping to find water and minerals as well as clues about the early solar system. Lander of Chandrayaan 2 has been named Vikram after Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, the man whose name is synonymous with India's space program. It weighs a whopping 1,471 kgs and can create electricity up to 650 watts. It will function for 1 lunar day, which is equivalent to 14 Earth days, and has been designed to make a soft landing, which means that the vehicle will not be damaged or destroyed during the process. It has been equipped to communicate directly with the Earth and can also communicate with the orbiter and the rover. Once landed, it will be studying the moon's quakes while gathering data from the rover.
All right, let's get it. Professor B.G. Siddhartha, we have R.C. Kapoor as well as Rashi Verma, who's a student at DPS. Professor Siddhartha, let me begin with you, sir. Vikram lander is on course. Share with us what is the next step, for Vikram, and more importantly, the role on the lunar surface.
Vikram is also carrying a rover. Right now, Vikram, that is including the rover, it's orbiting the moon, very close to it, and it is getting closer and closer. Finally, on the 7th of this month, in just about 4 days' time, Vikram will land near the south pole of the moon. Why south pole? Firstly, it has not been explored in the past. Secondly, India's Chandrayaan 1 examined the lunar south pole and found traces of water. So that is a very promising area for finding water, and that is why Vikram is targeted to land near the lunar south pole.
Then Professor Siddhartha, then tell us that with the second maneuver now, Vikram will be, of course, heading to the moon. Tell us more about the approach velocity and how is the speed reduced for the lander?
Right now, Vikram is orbiting the moon, getting ever closer to it, but it has to land on the moon. Land meaning soft land. That requires retro rockets to slow it down till it gently touches down on the moon. Once that happens, from Vikram, a buggy, like a small cab or rover, will roll out of Vikram. This buggy is called the Pragyan buggy. It will then move on the moon's surface near the South Pole, examining it for various detail. How is the terrain? What is the composition? And so on. And it will be relaying information back to Vikram, which is still orbiting the moon, if you remember, and from there to Chandrayaan-1 to the Indian Earth Station.
In fact, Mr. Kapoor, I want to bring you in here as well, sir, for the next course for Vikram, the lander, and of course its role on the lunar surface.
See, Chandrayaan-2 is a very ambitious mission of ISRO, and so far now it has been a very good journey, and almost as per the textbook description. So Chandrayaan-2 is carrying a large number of equipments, and a total 14 experiments have been planned. Of these, the orbiter has 8 instruments, lander has got 4, and rover also has instruments. So in total there are 14 instruments. Of these, one is a passive one, which is NASA's retro reflectors. They are supposed to reflect laser beams sent from the Earth. All other instruments are Indian, and the data that is to be collected is for the purpose of Indian scientists, which of course they will be sometime hearing also. The main purpose of Chandrayaan-2 is to know about the moon. The Chandrayaan-1 mission was a great success. So whatever findings that came our way, of those findings, the most important one was the discovery of the presence of water on the moon, and that was a remarkable achievement. Chandrayaan-2 is a more sophisticated version of Chandrayaan-1. Apart from that, there is not just an orbiter, there is going to be a lander and a rover also. Yesterday, Chandrayaan-2 observed a separation. That was separation between the orbiter and the lander. Lander is carrying a rover also inside it, and lander has separated successfully yesterday and is in the orbit as it was expected to be, pretty close to that. This morning also another operation was done. Its orbit was shrunk a little bit, and that we say deorbit 1. And tomorrow early morning there will be another deorbit which is deorbit 2, in which it is going to be placed in a more elliptical orbit than it is at present. That orbit is supposedly 30 km by 100 km. That means that the maximum height of the lander that will be orbiting the moon will touch about 100 kilometers, and at the minimum distance from the surface it will come to about 30 kilometers. And so far now all these remote controlled operations have been very close to the intended orbits, and we expect that the landing that is going to take place early morning on 7th September will be sufficiently as per programmed, although ISRO calls it 15 minutes of horrifying moments.
Then, sir, tell us about, you did mention about the approach velocity, but explain to us in greater detail how the speed would be reduced for the lander.
Now, orbiter and the lander, they are in rather similar orbits, although they are not sort of clashing. They are slightly different orbits. They differ by a few kilometers. But tomorrow's early morning maneuver is going to change the orbit in the following sense, that the desired orbit is 30 by 100 kilometers for the lander, and hopefully it will be fairly close to that. There is slight tinkering with the orbit of the orbiter also, because it should be almost overhead at the time when lander is landing on the surface of the moon. So that happens, say, about 15 minutes. It will happen, and it will happen in a few stages of kind of a bit. You come down, then slow down. You come down, then further you slow down. Then you come down, and then further slow down in several steps. With the help of the rockets, that will slow it down so that it doesn't fall to just break apart. And that's how it's going to happen, and that is most tricky because ISRO has never attempted soft landing anywhere. Anyway, this is the third mission of ISRO into deep space, and like we already know that Chandrayaan 1 was very successfully placed in the orbit around the moon, and also a remarkable achievement happened in 2014 in September when Mars orbiter mission was successfully placed in the orbit around Mars. So that was such a large distance.
Right.
Here also distance is substantial, so something like 3,70,000 kilometers or so, and so here it's a direct command is possible, but once lander starts descending, it's in an autonomous mode. So obviously it has been already programmed to tackle, and there are sensors on it, and they give information to the NGC, that is Navigation and Guidance Control System. That's a very sophisticated system because that helps it decide where exactly it's going to land and whether that place is safe or not, and in case it can shift a little bit and then be able to land. The landing is going to be very, very slow, and as I understand as of now, it might be, say, half meter per second might be the speed at which it will come down, and with the help of the those engines, it is going to remain sufficiently slow as it touches down the surface of the moon on the morning of 7th September. That will happen between 1:30 and 2:30. So we are looking forward to that with bated breath, and so far now we have been very thrilled.
In fact, let's get in Rashi Verma as well. Rashi, you've been listening patiently to both Professor Siddhartha as well as R.C. Kapoor, but I want to ask you, how do you feel after getting selected? Tell us a little bit more about the Chandrayaan project.
So very excited to meet PM Narendra Modi. So Chandrayaan was launched on 22nd July. It is landing on moon on 7th September. So we'll get to know how is the moon, everything about moon and its structure. I'm very excited to see live landing of moon on 7th September in Bangalore.
In fact, how did you come to know about this online competition? Tell us more about that.
In my family there are two members, my father who is a farmer and my mother who is a government teacher. I got to know about this project competition from my principal mom. She circulated that there will be a space quiz competition in school. So I thought it would be nice to participate in that.
All right, absolutely. B.G. Siddhartha sir, Professor, let me ask you this, that what kind of details is Vikram the lander supposed to collect from the lunar surface?
What is the mineral composition, number one. Number two, how is the surface like? In other words, how rocky is it, how smooth is it, and so on. And that is very important for future landers.
Talk to us, sir, about how rare a feat do you think this is for India?
It is a very great achievement. Of course, there is still the lunar buggy and Vikram landing on the moon. That is the final act. But even so far, it has been a splendid achievement and one which should bring pride to all Indians in particular.
All right. In fact, sir, before I let you go, I want to ask you this, that there's also Pragyan that India has clearly put its set its sights on. How do you see that?
Gaganyaan is the next logical step. This is really sending man into outer space. We have not done it so far except for Rakesh Sharma, who many years ago got a lift from a Russian spacecraft. Now some Indian astronauts are getting trained in Russia. They will come, join the Gaganyaan, and the Gaganyaan will then go around the earth and bring them back. So this is all a training for manned explorations of outer space. So far India has not done it, but China has done it.
All right, thanks much to the panel for joining us. All eyes, of course, now on the historic landing by India on the south polar region of the moon. Thanks much for watching.